who led England to the World Cup. And that leads Bill's team to a win by 4 points, 33 to 29. Well, the captain's now level at 2 each. See you next week, BBC1, same time, same place. Till then, goodbye.
No gambler can resist a dead cert, so let it ride. The comedy starring Richard Dreyfuss on BBC2 shortly.
Is it clear?
Go, go, go!
Was the mounted section sent in to bring under control a riot which, so far as we can establish, may have been caused by 2 men and a dog?
I don't care about your public confidence. I'm battling for this police force.
The ACC ops isn't ill. He's been suspended.
What happened wasn't an accident. It was a tragedy born of negligence.
Between the Lines in half an hour on BBC1.
That's after the news now on BBC1 with Martin Lewis. It's 9 o'clock.
The head of the RAF apologises for making a speech widely seen as an attack on the Chancellor and the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Sir Michael Graydon says his apparent criticism of the Treasury for questioning the efficiency of the armed forces was misinterpreted. A leaked document suggests ministers ignored government research when making party conference speeches criticising single mothers. 1,500 miners in Yorkshire are facing redundancy after the announcement that British Coal wants to close 3 more pits. Good evening. The Chief of Britain's Air Staff, Sir Michael Graydon, has tonight publicly apologised to Kenneth Clarke and Michael Portillo for a speech which implied the Treasury had attempted to denigrate the armed forces as inefficient in order to justify defence cuts. Sir Michael said he regretted that his remarks had been misinterpreted, as his sole intention was to refute what he called some of the more serious misrepresentations in the press. And he added, "I have no evidence that any Treasury Minister has instigated a press campaign against the RAF or the other services." Mr Portillo and Mr Clarke responded immediately with a statement saying they were confident that no Treasury official had offered any briefing to the press on defence matters.
It didn't take long today for Michael Portillo and Kenneth Clarke to extract an apology for last night's criticism. They were said to be furious with Sir Michael Graydon for accusing them, however indirectly, of undermining the services with leaks to the press. Sir Michael Graydon had known that as a serving defence chief, his remarks would be politically sensitive, and he'd refused to let us film his speech last night to limit its impact. Yet he probably hadn't reckoned on the reaction nonetheless. A meeting with an angry Defence Secretary this morning and pressure to apologise. That he agreed to do. In identical letters to the Chancellor and the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Sir Michael concedes, "I have no evidence that any Treasury Minister has instigated a press campaign against the RAF or the other services. My sole intention was to refute some of the more serious misrepresentations in the press." Several stories had alleged the RAF was top-heavy and inefficient, and when they appeared last month, defence officials had privately accused the Treasury, including Mr Portillo, of planting them. Treasury ministers were at that time in the final stage of setting the defence budget. Tonight they denied there was any campaign, and one former colleague said they were anyway just doing their job.
Just as people in the armed forces and their supporters in Parliament have made known their dissatisfaction with the prospect of cuts, so I dare say the Treasury are articulating their case. But then that's why we have a Treasury. You know, it's no point complaining that a dog barks. The Treasury's job is to curb public expenditure.
But within the armed forces, especially the RAF, Sir Michael's criticism had gone down well. With the forces stretched to meet new commitments like patrolling the no-fly zone over Iraq, and with more cuts imminent, There was relief that at last one of the chiefs had spoken out.
We are being faced with a series of debilitating and apparently unplanned, unsequenced cuts launched by a Treasury which appears to think the British Armed Forces can be run like a privatised industry, and manifestly they can't.
The Defence Secretary Malcolm Rifkind knows the chiefs feel that way as well, but he believes he's managed to stave off the worst of the Treasury's demands for cuts, and he wants their backing. The problem is that the RAF chief wasn't alone in his opinion. The head of the army, Sir Peter Inge, was at last night's speech, and I saw him nodding in agreement at the main points. The First Sea Lord has also endorsed the speech. Tonight's apology won't remove the strain between chiefs and ministers as defence cuts bite. David Shookman, BBC News.
Well, I'm joined now from Westminster by our political editor, Robin Oakley. Robin, an unprecedented speech and then an amazing apology, all within 24 hours. What's going on?
Well, rows between the Treasury and the Defence Department, when you've got a tight spending round like we've had this year, are a traditional part of British pageantry, really. And the Defence Chiefs knew early on that the Treasury had targeted them for big cuts, so it's got particularly bitter. What you get at a time like this is caricature politics, with Defence Chiefs arguing in private that the Treasury is a bunch of skinflints who know the value of everything, know the price of everything and the value of nothing, and Treasury people arguing that Defence Chiefs want every gadget their boffins could possibly produce for them and can't really do their sums. What Sir Michael has done is to bring that kind of backroom arguing into the foreground. He's overdone the political comment and he's been forced to eat humble pie.
And how heavily was he lent on by the government in order to make him eat that humble pie and apologise tonight?
Oh, undoubtedly, he's been lent on very heavily. The Treasury ministers were furious at the suggestion they'd been denigrated